Hey everyone, this is Griffin's Claws. It's the newest addition to Shakmat Modular's lineup, and it's billed as a Quad Attenuator Recorder. So what does that mean? Well, you get 4 channels, that's the quad part, and the sliders are attenuators or voltage sources, and the recorder part is that you can automate the movement of the sliders. Under the hood, there's all kinds of different menu options and options for customization. I'm going to go through all of those in a minute. But one of the most useful features is the ability to clock sync these recorded loops and movements and have it fit the beat or quantize it into more musical time segments. So yeah, it's a lot bigger than just an attenuator. And there are tons of different creative ways to play it. So in this video, I'm going to show you what's going on underneath the hood. I'll show you its layout and how to use its basic functions. I'll go through all of that really slowly and use an oscilloscope so you can get a really good idea of what it does. And through that, also, I'll talk about a few different creative ways that you could use it in your patches. Before we jump into it, big thanks to Shakmat for sending me the Griffin's Claws and sponsoring this video. All right, let's jump in. Okay, so first things first, let's just quickly go over the layout and navigation. Here are the 4 channel inputs and outputs. You have inputs on the top and outputs on the bottom, and those correspond with 1, 2, 3, 4. Clock input, you have the reset input. This is where you reset the loops or set the starting place for a clock synced loop. Gate 1 and gate 4. These are attached to either channel 1 or channel 4. And there's 2 different options for those. You can either set it to give a trigger at the end of cycle of a loop, or you can have it in change mode, which means that it'll send a high gate signal whenever there's a dynamic change in the slider. I'll demonstrate that using the oscilloscope. Down here are the record buttons. You hold this down to record it. I'll also demonstrate that in a second. But you can see, just like many of Shakmat's other modules, this function button has the brown or orange circle around it. And down here are your menu options. You have rate, amplitude, sync, and offset. It's very easy to operate. You just hold function and press one of them, and it's blinking, and then you can set your option for each of the 4 sliders. In the middle here, it's kind of hard to read, but I'll go through each one of them throughout the video. But you're going to have 3 options for each of the different menu items. So like, for instance, offset, it's all the way over here on this side, and you can see 0, 5 volts, 10 volts, and you can set each channel to something different. We'll get into all of that in just 1 second. To get out of this menu, you just press the function button. If you hold down these 2 buttons, you get to the options menu, and there you can turn on things like sample and hold. You can also adjust how the gate functions react. Those options are located here in gray. I'll get into all that too as we go on. But basically, it's very easy to navigate. There's no big menu or button combinations to really remember. It's just turn on whatever you want here and pick your option, and press this and pick your option. Okay, so I know it's billed as an attenuator, but I think it makes sense to, as I'm explaining it, to talk about it as a voltage source first. Each one of the inputs has a normalized voltage that goes to it. So what normalized means is that underneath the hood, it's hardwired to receive a certain voltage. And if you plug something else into it, it breaks that normalization and replaces it with something else. Now you have some options, and you can set it to either 0 volts, 5 volts, or 10 volts. So to do that, we just go here to offset, press function, offset. And now each of these sliders, if you look to the orange letters in the middle, those will tell you what you're setting it to. So basically, all the way up is 10 volts, 5 volts, and 0 volts. Set them all to 0 for right now. And you'll notice when you leave the function menu that the slider doesn't do anything. That's basically because it's attenuating 0 volts, so it doesn't change. If I change the offset to, say, 5 volts, then you'll notice when I turn it up, it will go up to 5 volts. If you can see this, each of these little boxes is 2 volts. So it's gone up 2.5, so that's 5. And then if we set it to 10 volts, now it'll go all the way up to 10 and it maxes out at 10. So I'm going to go ahead and plug this into something. I'm going to plug it into the cutoff of an oscillator, and now it controls that oscillator. Just to go through one other setting here is amplitude. Now for this use case, it doesn't really matter that much, but you can set the maximum amplitude amount. So if I go function and amplitude, it's more linear here. So if I put it to right about there, despite the offset, the 10 volts coming in here, it will change the amount it's allowed to go up, the maximum amplitude. So you get a little bit more control over that. And that comes in really handy if, say, you're using it as a mixer and something's peaking or something like that. You can just use the amplitude settings to control the maximum value. I'm going to go ahead and set the amplitude settings all the way up. Now you can do this for each one of them. You can have them at different values. Just press the offset, and let's put that one at 5, this one at 10, and we'll leave that one at 0. And now it's set to 5 volts, 10 volts, and 0. So that's basically how you get around the menu, and that's the offset and amplitude functions. We'll get into sync and rate in a bit, but now let's talk about recording the slider movements. So what really makes the Griffin's Claws exciting is the fact that you can automate the slider movements and record with them. And it's really easy. So right now it's not synced up, so it's in free mode. And if you hold down one of these recorder buttons and move the slider, it will record what you do and loop it over and over again. Now, what I did right there, just so you could hear me talking, is I turned it into direct mode by pushing direct, which is this button, and the record button. You can see it's still blinking. That means that the recording is still held in the buffer, and if I push it again, it'll come right back on. When it's in direct mode, you can control the slider. So that gives you some options to, especially when it's in sync mode, you can get like a rhythm going or something, and then turn it on to direct and go like a fade up, tension release type thing. And if you want to erase what you recorded, you just push this button, erase, and hit it. You can also re-record over what you've done by just pushing the record button again. So really, it's fairly easy to use and navigate. Let's get a little bit deeper and plug in an LFO to the input. Okay, so right now, because I have an LFO here, the normalization is broken. So that offset on this channel doesn't matter anymore. The signal is going to be the LFO, and this is just a simple attenuator for it. And that's it. That's how it works. And you can set recording for those. Now, one cool thing is this cascading feature. So what cascading means is that if nothing's plugged into these outputs, that source will move on down the line. There's many uses for this. You can use it as a mixer and send in, like, say, drums to all 4 inputs and take the sum output of channel 4, and then you can automate levels of the different drums. You can also customize your LFO or have a little bit more control over it by going into a separate channel. So now what I'm going to do is set the offset of this channel to 10 volts. What I can do is combine that offset with the LFO. And of course, things get really crazy when you record a slider movement on both of them. Pretty cool stuff. All right, let's get into the clock sync. So for this demonstration, I'm going to keep it simple, and I have the output right back with the original example. And I have a clock coming from a clock source, and that's going into some drums. So this is what the drums sound like. I should note too that the kick sound you're hearing is from Shakmat's battering ram. It's my favorite kick module and worth checking out. I have a video on that. I'll put the link up there. All right, so that's what we're working with. Now, right now, I'm still in free mode. It's not clock synced, even though it's plugged in there. I just want to show you what it will sound like if you record without it being clock synced. So you can see it doesn't quite fit. So I'm going to go ahead and set it to be synced to the clock. So we have three options here: free mode, clock synced, and quantized. Now, the differences between clock synced and quantized are very, very subtle. If you have it at clock synced, then it will react to the changes in beats per minute. So if you speed up or slow down your sequence, it will speed up and slow down with it. So it'll still be locked into the clock. But if you turn it to quantize, then it becomes more musical, where it'll set it to bars or phrases or something like that, so it sounds more in step with the beat. Quantize mode is the one that I like the best, so that's what we're going to start with. I'm going to go ahead and go to sync, and we'll turn it up to quantized mode, and now we'll listen to what happens. So you can see that it lines up directly with the music. And that's really cool because, again, you can use those performance features like the direct button, the direct mode, to add some tension and release. Now, I should note too that while most of my music is probably going to be in 4/4, you do have some options for different time signatures. You could do 4/4, 5/4, 6/4, 7/4, and 9/4. And how you adjust those options is you go to the options menu by pushing both of these, and then you can change this right here, and you can see that they're labeled here on the side in black. So fader 3 controls that. You can also adjust the rate here by pressing function and rate. That will adjust based on the clock. It will divide it by 2 or be right in time with the clock, or it will be double time. So one other cool feature that's hidden underneath the hood is the ability to use it for sample and hold. So let's jump into that. What sample and hold is rather than giving a smooth voltage like this, it'll give a stepped voltage. And what happens is at specific points, it will sample, or it'll basically freeze, and it'll hold it constant. And then at another trigger or at another point, it'll jump up to whatever the new value is. So it creates these steps. This can give really cool rhythmic effects if you're doing something like controlling a cutoff like I am now. But it also, whenever I hear stepped voltage, I think, oh, that might be cool for creating sequences by sending it through a quantizer. But let's first turn it on. So that's in the options menu. So you click both of these. And then just to turn it on, you select which channel you want to be in sample and hold mode. So let's stick with number 1. You'll see that the voltage now is stepped as it goes up and down. Now, right now it's set into free mode. It's not clock synced, even though something's plugged in there, because otherwise it wouldn't react to it at all. Because that, if you have it clocked, then it'll only sample a new position on the slider whenever there's a trigger on the clock. To show this, let me turn the clock sync back on. I'll turn it into quantize mode. We'll exit. And now you can see it does nothing. But if I turn my sequence back on, and actually I'm going to turn my clock to quarter notes so it'll match up with the drum beat so you can really see it. So you can notice that even though I was moving the slider continuously, every time that drum beat hit, that's when it triggers it and it'll hold a steady voltage. So this would be cool for a rhythmic effect if I wanted to set that trigger and then have it control the cutoff, and every time the kick drum hits, it'll provide a new level for the cutoff. So I'm gonna go ahead and record something with that. It's kind of cool, and that was just randomized. I was moving it at random. And then of course you could do the normalization trick that I was doing before. Pretty cool stuff. Now I'm going to set the clock back to 16th notes so it matches up the notes of the sequencer. Instead of sending it to the cutoff, I'm now sending it to a quantizer. So that way we can actually program in a sequence using this. Now 10 volts means that's 10 octaves worth of notes. That's way too high. So I'm going to set the offset to 5 volts. And I'm also going to set my amplitude down somewhere in the middle too. So hopefully that will give us a smaller range of voltage. So let's hear what that sounds like. I've got a little bit of a harmony going with a different oscillator, but you can kind of get the point. I'll turn down the harmony. I'm actually going to set that amplitude a little bit higher. Let's go up to there. Pretty cool. So now what I'm going to do is actually go ahead and record some different values. So again, you can use the direct mode to kind of make things very interesting. Super fun stuff. Okay, that should give you a really good idea of what it can do. I just want to explain a couple more utilities for it, and that's this gate output. You have two modes. One's the change mode and end of cycle mode. Go ahead and plug gate 1 into channel 2. I hope you can see this. It's going to be in blue. So if we go into the options menu, right here we have end of cycle and change. Let's go ahead and start with change. And I'm also going to put this back into free mode just for this example. So you can actually see it's running, and you can see there's all kinds of gates going on there. Let me show you what's happening. I'm actually going to turn off sample and hold as well. So again, we're right back to the smooth voltage. You'll notice that whenever I move the slider, that gate on the blue channel goes up. And the second I stop it, it goes down. So it's whenever it's being dynamic, whenever it's changing, it's going up. See, it goes up, stop, goes down. If I'm going down, still the gate goes up. And the second I stop it, it goes down. So that's one mode. The other mode is end of cycle. So we'll give a trigger at the end of each cycle. Sometimes it's even hard to register on the oscilloscope. So if I go here, and then I set it down, now it's end of cycle. Let's get out of there. And if I go ahead and record a fader movement, right there, you can see at the end of the cycle, it gives off a trigger. Now my oscilloscope didn't always pick it up, so I'm assuming that the gate length is just extremely short when it's the end of cycle, but that's how it works. And then finally, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that some of its utilities. It does have the ability to store up to 16 different loops using the function load and save buttons. And then these are your banks and then your sliders. I can't remember exactly. It's either banks and sliders or sliders and banks, but basically you have 4 banks with 4 slots on each. And you can load and save them using those 2 buttons and the function button. It also can use the select bus if you have a module that uses that. I don't typically use the select bus, but there's information in the manual on that, so you can kind of manually manage all of those saved loops and things like that. In the back, you can link them together, so that way it can cascade all the way through. It comes with this little wire that you can use to connect them. Since I only have one, I can't demonstrate it to you, but that's just one extra utility. So there you go. That should give you a good idea of what it does. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks again to Shakmat for sponsoring this video and giving me the Griffin's Claws to demo it for you. Let me know what you think in the comments section. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.